Hi, and welcome to DDOCast, episode 391, recorded live on July 26th. You can find us on twitch.tv/DDOcast. I'm your temporary host, Cordovan, community manager for Dungeons & Dragons Online. This week's screenshot, the 3 warlock tiers pose and what goes up in our 231st DDO screenshot of the week. Thanks, Tori, for sending in the cool screenshot. We'd like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons Online just about every weekend. You can watch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, or from the website, DDOCast.com. DDOCast is hosted by Cyber Ears, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be August 2nd, Sunday, and you can stay updated by following us on social media or DDOcast.com, where they've got a calendar. On the podcast this week, we've got Update 27 news, community podcasts and blogs, and the reason I'm here, another debate on the upcoming XP changes in Update 27. I want to do some introductions with me to debate. First off, I guess I should say Patrick from DDOcast.
Hi.
You're here as a debater, and I'm here as a moderator this time around.
Yeah. And can I just say, with the screenshot of the week, did anyone else get a Sleeping Beauty reference kind of thing going here with the different fairies? They've got the color scheme going down.
I think that might be deliberate, but I think you might be right. Yeah, interesting. All right, up next, the guy with one of the busiest Twitter feeds in DDO land, DDOCentral. How you doing, DDOCentral?
Hello, everyone.
Nice to have you on the show. Have you been on DDOcast before?
No, this is my first time, and I just was on DDO Players about a few weeks ago, and I'm making my rounds now on the podcast.
And DDOCentral is primarily a Twitter list of basically a collation of anything DDO related that's going on online that you can find, which is a heck of a lot. So you might want to check that out. That is twitter.com/DDOCentral.
I actually use it to find stuff.
I have to admit, I actually sometimes, usually on Chronicle Tuesdays, I'll just to make sure there's not something I missed, I'll skim it as well. So. MC Hammer may be long gone in the popular culture, but we do have Kantouch with us. How you doing?
Great. How are you doing, Jerry?
Good. How are those parachute pants? Got your swimming pool yet?
They're a little baggy, but it's tough to not get them caught on my chair.
But seriously, Kantouch, to introduce yourself to the crowd here.
I'm Kantouch. I'm the leader of Blood Rage on Cannith, and I'm just here to talk about some DDO.
Cool. Well, thanks for having you here. We are here to start off with our roundtable discussion. I am the moderator here, and these 4 folks, or 3 folks, are moderatees? I don't know. Debatees.
Panelists.
There we go. Analysts. Yes.
Panelists.
Panelists. Well, you can be
That's
analysts,
the debate
too.
panel.
Yeah. A roundtable discussion, the DDO debate rules. Each guest will be given the opportunity to give an opening statement in a rotating order. Arguments should be creative, passionate, amusing, and factual, but they should not be mean. Counterpoints are encouraged. Interruptions are allowed at my discretion. If all guests choose to debate the same point, a troll will be chosen to argue a different point. Points will be arbitrarily awarded at my discretion and have absolutely no meaning. Although I think I'm going to change that this time because the winner's going to get 500 Turbine points.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Game on.
So. And the winner at the end gets 500 Turbine points. So let's start off here with just kick right into the debate, huh? What do you guys think?
Go for it.
All right. First question. Does the panel like the XP changes coming in Update 27? Will it encourage grouping and rating? Maybe we should just back up here just to explain for those who maybe don't know. I think primarily you're talking about the removal of the flawless bonus. In the past, if someone died in a quest and you were in a party, for example, then you would lose 10% XP.
The question's for all of them, all the changes. So there's that. There's the bravery streak pausing, and then the events as well.
Okay. Okay. See, I thought the bravery streak was maybe its own question, but that sounds fine. So then there are 3 parts. Then one is which instead of having a flawless bonus, which was largely interpreted in the community as a penalty, we're instead just having it be you only. So if you die, you lose the bonus, and anyone else in your party does not. In regard to the event, we're enabling the creation of technology that will allow us to do essentially party weekends and raid weekends, where anyone who joins your party, the more people you have in your group, get a little bit of an XP bonus, and that bonus can be determined by us. We haven't yet said what it's going to be, but it's basically a way to sort of add encouraging grouping and or raiding into our sort of event rotation. And then finally, the bravery streak can now be paused. You can do that by either going to the Hall of Heroes or on your guild airship on the top deck. This will be with update 27 here, come Monday.
There's also hirelings not doing a penalty as well.
Oh, yeah. And hirelings, when they die, you will not lose 5% XP. So there's the XP changes in a nutshell. So what do you guys think? Will it encourage grouping and raiding? We're going to start off here with DDOCentral.
I think it will among the lower and mid-level players in the game, because probably a lot of the power players aren't going to play with people that are new or are casual players. But for people that one of the issues with the game is that it's 10 years old, and there have been people that have been there since beta, and they when new people come in, they have trouble sometimes finding groups unless they join a guild, and then maybe not, their guildies aren't available. But this will help a lot of the newer people or people that aren't power players group together through pugs. That there's more of an incentive to do so. But there's basically two tiers, maybe three tiers in the game. Where you have new people coming in, and then you have people that have been playing for a while but are more casual, but the power players, the people that are triple completionists and have been playing for a number of years, they're really not going to be affected by these changes, I don't think, because they're so far ahead of everyone else that they're not going to start grouping. But I think that newer people or pug groups will be affected by these changes, and they are positive changes. I think they're all really good ideas.
All right. Up next here with an opening statement is Kantouch.
I like every single bit of the XP change that they're putting in. Not getting the 10% if one of your party member dies is just going to encourage more people to put up an LFM. I mean, I open my LFMs every day anyway. If I only got 2 people that I know to play with, I'm going to get 3 more. But not getting a penalty if somebody dies will only further encourage grouping. Being able to change your bravery bonus, turn it off. Let's say you want to farm running with the devils because you can get a bunch of XP in an hour, but you don't think your build's strong enough to go in there and just bust it out. Turn it off. Go on hard. Go on normal. Whatever's better for you.
Cool.
It's all
going to
improve it all.
Oh, sorry. And then Patrick. Yep.
So I always like more XP. That's where I always start. If I'm going to get more XP, I'm not going to complain. Because, especially as you play longer, you kind of want to burn through some of those levels and get XP a little faster. I think that the results are probably going to be a little skewed, kind of like what DDOCentral was saying, in that there's kind of 2 ends of the spectrum, where some people are so new that they're a little concerned about joining groups, and this will help those people get involved. There's also the people at the higher end that, that flawless bonus, that is mandatory, right? And they don't group, they solo just because of that. And I think you'll see some of those people will be affected. But by and large, I think most people kind of fall in a spectrum of, bravery streaks are great, but they're not the end-all, be-all. Maybe they go down to an epic hard streak or something. They're not concerned about the epic elite. You've got people that they don't care about that flawless bonus. They group anyways, and them grouping has more to do with, do they want to deal with people who might be kind of green and new to the quest, and maybe they'll have to hold someone's hand a little bit. I think that's kind of where most of the population is going to be, in terms of why are we going to group or not. So I think it'll have a minimal effect. It will help. I think also you're probably going to have more of an effect within small community like guilds or channels where people are, I want to run this. I'd run that, but I don't want to break my streak. So you get a little bit of benefit there. As far as the rating event goes, I think as far as rating goes in general, so suspending bravery will help a little bit. But I think folks tend to either focus on they're either going to be rating or they're doing XP. If you're doing a lot of past lives, you're probably not going to be doing a lot of rating anyways. And I don't think that the XP event for raids is really going to do a lot, just from the standpoint that other than Von 5 and Tempest Spine, people don't really run raids for XP. They're not great XP runs, and you'd have to run them. You can't just run them over and over again anyways. So.
Yeah, with one exception, that'd be Von 5.
Yeah, I mean, Von 5 and Tempest Spine are you can run over and over again, and they're kind of the exception to the rule, and are XP runs, and people do them. But the other raids,
just saying,
they're not XP runs.
Let's just say, for example, it was 2% more XP per person in your party. That would be, 11 times 2. That'd be 22%.
And you're the moderator.
Yeah. Okay. You're right. I'm just saying. Okay. Good point. I will have to keep my opinions to myself.
You can share after we're done.
All right. So, anyone else sort of want to debate, or
some of these early ones may not be very debatey.
Yeah, I mean, these are positive changes. It's just that I think we're all saying that it is a good idea, but it's not going to dramatically affect pugging or grouping or how people run the quests, just because the power players are disconnected from the rest of the community at this point. So it's going to affect people in the middle and people that are coming in, which is good because it'll help retain new players. But in terms of giving everybody to play again together, that's not going to happen because you have people that have memorized the content, that are ridiculously powered, and they're not going to be grouping with First Life people, or it's going to happen not that often.
For casual grouping, there will be benefits. I would be surprised if it changes the rating scene a lot.
Yeah, because I think a lot of raids are done now in guild. For the higher level players, it'll affect raid pugging for maybe people that are just getting in or with small guilds. But they are positive changes, though.
Yes, they're. Yeah, I'm not saying I don't want changes at all.
This is interesting, though. I think people might object to the idea of shutting off the bravery streak. That's some kind of contrivance,
That's
that they're
the next
imposing.
Question.
Well, okay, but, yeah, we can get into that. But I'll talk about this. That's not without precedent, actually, in other MMOs.
Sure. All right. Well, since we are going to be transitioning to our second question, why don't we call it on the first question here? I'm going to, or how are we doing this? Were you still doing 1,000 XP? Is that kind of how you were doing your points?
I kind of stopped doing the winner XP thing just because I didn't feel like it added a whole lot to the debate, and it was a pain to figure out on my end. As
All right.
opposed
Well,
to
Patrick gets the
moderating.
kill. Patrick gets the kill on question 1. So we'll just do it that way. You get 1.
You should explain why you're picking that, though.
I'm picking it just mostly because it became largely the focus of the conversation. It was a quick overview about what everything was. So everyone had good points, though, and everyone seemed to actually be largely on the same page, frankly, for this one.
Kind of thought that might happen.
Yeah.
But it's important to talk about. Yeah, you can totally who's line the points on this, as Lessa would put it. So,
yeah, like I say, it doesn't matter. So. But I want to give that because I'm actually going to do some Turbine points here. I did just want to say real quick in regard to the raid bonus in particular. I don't know if the intention of the raid bonus is to necessarily make a dramatic change in raiding behavior, as it is mostly, hey, for this week or weekend, if I raid, then I'm going to get an extra X%. So it may encourage people who would be like, well, I don't know, am I going to raid or am I not going to raid? Or people wanting to join those LFMs. It's not meant to necessarily change or fix, quote, any of the perceived problems in the raiding scene, so much as it is just a way to say, hey, have you thought about raiding? Do you want to raid? Are you already going to be raiding? Well, here we go,
Yeah, and I think practically, unless that bonus is a significant bonus, I don't see it having large impact. Again, raids aren't XP runs. And if the bonus is to XP, it's not going to, I don't feel like it's going to, like for me, whatever. I'm not running a raid for XP. unless it's Von 5 or Tempest Spine. Now, if it was a extra % bonus to raid loot chance, that would boost the raiding scene for a weekend.
You're right. Maybe we should just call it the Von 5 weekend. Oh my God! Do you have any idea how much XP that's going to be?
Yeah, I mean, Von 5 has a ridiculous amount of XP. I've gotten over 100,000 XP on single runs. From Von
I think that event will get everyone to run Von 5 repeatedly every day, like twice every day for that weekend, and that's fine. I mean, but yeah. I don't see people intentionally doing like Von 6 or Demon Queen or Caught in the Web. Caught in the Web's not. It's a long quest, not a lot of XP. Anyways.
Yeah. Well, if you were going to do it anyway, it may be the motivation to get a group or help get a group for it. So, all right, number 2, our question: should people be allowed to pause their bravery streak? We're going to start with Kantouch.
Oh, I totally agree that they should be able to. I think this is one of my favorite features of Update 27. It'll allow somebody that's getting all their lives put together, somebody that's out there grinding XP, that sees a raid up. Let's say it's Mark of Death, and they want to go do that, get a chance at some loot real quick, and still get a decent amount of XP without having to risk their bravery streak on the next quest they want to do.
All right. Next up, Patrick.
I think it certainly begs the question of, if it's a bravery streak and there's a number there, if you can turn it off, what's the point? I like that the bonus, like, there's been a lot of talk about there should just be a first-time bonus instead. I like that the bravery bonus encourages you to run a higher difficulty, but it won't penalize you for running a lower difficulty now unless you choose to use your streak on a hard streak instead. I'll go with that for now.
And then finally, DDOCentral.
Yeah, I do think this is a good idea. I don't think it'll affect really pugs very much, but it might affect guild runs. If people, like, in a guild, if they're helping out new people, because when I play with my guild, we've had people switch characters just so they wouldn't have to break their bravery streak while helping lower level people in the guild or people with lower level tunes. So instead of switching characters, they could just shut off their bravery streak, run all the content for that day, helping lower level characters or people with lower level tunes, and then turn it back on when they're ready to start running content by themselves, or with a pug. Or even if a pug can't find enough people to do the like an elite bravery streak, they can shut it off and then do the content and turn it back on. So actually, I thought this was kind of strange when I first heard of the ability to shut on and off bravery streaks. And then I tried out another game this weekend, another MMO, and in this game you can turn on and off your death penalty to some extent. There's like a soft death penalty and a hard death penalty, and if you want to just die and respawn, you can turn that on, and then the hard death penalty breaks your gear, and you have to restart it at a farther point. So when I first heard about this, I thought it was kind of odd, but it does actually exist in other MMOs where you can turn on conditions, turn them on and off in the game that affect gameplay, that are more than just settings. And so I think that this will be a positive development. Again, it's not going to dramatically affect how people play the game, but like the XP changes, it'll be a benefit, because I can see it myself just with playing in guild, that it'll save people time and make things easier for them.
I think this change will have a lot more impact in the epic levels, where in heroic, hard to elite isn't as big of a jump. You get into epics, epic hard versus epic elite can be a significant, particularly depending on the quest, can be a significant increase in difficulty level. So I think you'll see a lot more of an impact there than heroic levels.
I agree. It'll definitely have more effect on epic than heroic, but I still love it. It's going to encourage more and more people to quest together, just being able to turn it off.
Yeah, I think people have a valid question mark of, should it still be called a bravery streak if you can turn it off? But I don't like the idea that it's to I know a lot of people saying just roll it into the first time bonus XP, and that doesn't. It still gives a reward for running a higher difficulty and harder to content. So,
if you want your reward, you can choose to take your reward. If you don't want your reward, you don't have to risk your next reward on it. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, it removes some of the challenge. Yeah, I guess Patrick is right, because you can shut it on and off, but still, it's good for grouping, and that was the intention behind the change. That if we could solo everything, then there'd be no need to shut it off.
The only negative is people can't go on the achievements forum and say, "Look, I've got 2,000 quests in a row on Elite."
All right, I'm going to call it. I'm going to award 1 kill to Patrick and 1 kill to DDOCentral. Patrick, in particular, for asking the question, well, what kind of, what does it mean to the number itself if we allow pausing of it? And DDOCentral for, I think, very astutely noting that this may have an impact on guilds in regards to trying to help out fellow guildies who might be at a level that would impact your bravery streak. I did just want to say also about the bravery streak that question about, well, what does the number mean then, was something that we very much did talk about internally as well. I think to some extent what it's going to mean is, rather than say, hey, I did this all the first time on Elite, it's going to be more of an Elite counter. How many quests on Elite have you run? And I think that ultimately does still provide some kind of numerical figure to kind of have for bragging rights. But I think you're absolutely right about that. It will impact a little bit what the number means. Although I would say one other thing, and that is that we already have this happening sort of organically in the game by people, if they choose to run with guildies or whatever, they're like, well, I can run with you, but I got to recall out before we finish. And that happens, I think, a lot more than maybe some people would think happens. And since it's fairly disruptive behavior, that was actually one of the reasons that that was a motivator for doing this change.
It's kind of like the death counter, and like people just will stop using it. So people don't type /death space count anymore because nobody cares, because there's no XP penalty for it.
And like I say, we have some other stuff coming up regarding bragging rights that I'm not quite ready to talk about, but might be called Reaper mode. So, all right, question 3. What Update 27 feature is the best change or addition to the game? I'd like to kind of sort of narrow this to specific changes. So rather than say like XP changes, well, which one, for example? We're going to start here with Patrick.
We've been talking about it a lot already, but I think suspending bravery streak is going to be the best feature of an addition for the game. The biggest reason is, DDO is a little long in the tooth. It's we're 9.5 years old at this point, something like that. That's a long time for an MMO or an online game. Some not to take a pot shot at it, but Turbine's game Infinite Crisis didn't last very long. And 10 years is I think a pretty good achievement for a game. And I think you think about Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons is a community experience. Like, if people come from particularly people that come from pen and paper, right? I don't know if you've ever tried to play pen and paper by yourself. I haven't, because I assumed it would be incredibly dull, because it's more of a community experience than just a solo experience. And I think that really shows up in how DDO is structured. It's very group-oriented, instance-based. You're encouraged to do grouping. And a lot of the people that I play with, and we keep playing, not because, we like the game. We love the game. There's nothing against the game. But really, the reason why we keep playing is because we're playing with friends. And it's an enjoyable experience in a community playing. And anything that really removes barriers to grouping is good. I like new content. I like the crafting from the bank thing as a convenience. But grouping and removing barriers helps player retention, helps the lifespan. Gotta go with that.
All right. Kantouch.
Well, I always had a problem with the guilds running around with the red names, because I would try to kill them. Be it dumb or it's just distracting. I'm not sure, but I love that they're not going to be red anymore because I won't be swinging at them trying to kill somebody I can't kill. I'll actually be doing the right thing.
All right, finally, DDOCentral.
I really like the new edition of the Monster Manual. We've had 2 updates to the Monster Manual this year, and those have been requested by the community after probably like maybe an 18-month or 24-month gap where there are no updates to the Monster Manual. So I think that the Orc is being included, or was that last time? And I think the Gnoll.
Gnoll is this time.
The Gnoll is this time, which was a core monster that wasn't included, and hopefully we can eventually get all the core monsters in the Monster Manual, and at least get an update once a year to the Monster Manual. So I really like those changes to it. One thing that hasn't been included yet are Drow Elves, and do you know if that's something? I don't know if you can tell us or not. But
I don't know, actually. I have to be honest. I see all these things about all the monster meals, and I get confused as to what's in which one. To be honest, so I could, especially when it comes to forecasting which ones are going to be in future monster manuals. I have no idea, to be honest.
Well, I mean, the thing is, Drow Elves are a player race and also one of the most common monsters in the game. So
yeah, it does seem a little strange that they're not in there. I would agree with you there. I'll have to make sure I bring that up to the monster manual guy. So hey, we should do.
Here's the thing with the monster manual, like until it has Drow Elves, I don't think anyone's going to be like really rah-rahing for. I mean, they're a nice, and they're a nice little feature and addition. And I like that this one's going to have Mysterious Remnants involved with it, but I don't know. It's kind of a sidebar thing. You don't generally see people putting up LFMs to farm counts for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's true, but I mean, the Monster Manual has revitalized a lot of the gameplay to some extent, because people actually do content just to find rare item or rare monsters that are in the Monster Manual, because I've certainly done that, and other or farm for the pets. I know that one guy ran through what's the quest in the harbor area that's underneath with all the beholders.
Invaders.
Yeah, invaders. That's right. So he farmed invaders like over a weekend like crazy. He just ran it over and over again until he got the beholder pet, and killed like 750 beholders. So it has encouraged people to run content that they hadn't run before, and also do explorer areas just to find the rare monsters that are in the Monster Manual, or to do slayers in explorer areas just to hit the ceilings on the Slayer count in the Monster Manual. So it's a fun feature. It's not a core feature, but it is something that has really helped revitalize lower level gameplay, or help people run content that they haven't run just to farm it. It's kind of a new experience in the game.
All right. This is kind of a tough one. All three of you have very, very good arguments for your choices. Bravery bonus is certainly one of the things that the community has talked most about, frankly, with Update 27. The guild tier thing, you are so right about not, preventing. We need to prevent guild-on-guild violence. And this is one way to do that. And DDOCentral, you're right about the Monster Manual. Very astute, by the way, about saying that people are going into some Slayer areas and wilderness areas, not primarily, as a side benefit. Hey, this is also going to help my Monster Manual. And that is absolutely, you're right about that one. So I think what I'm going to do is give all three of you 1 point, because they're all three excellent changes, and just call it done on question 3.
I got to figure that somewhere at Turbine there's a giant whiteboard for monster manuals. There's a list of monsters somewhere.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much. It's in one of our internal wikis, and that's basically where it resides.
I'm sure the reason Drow's not... My theory on why Drow's not in it yet is whoever is running the Monster Manual realizes that that's a lot of monsters to go in and attach to the Monster Manual.
Yeah, they are everywhere, and there are so many of them. So there's so many different types, and they have to do it manually, right, Jerry?
Yeah, largely it is a manual process. You're right. You may well be right. I don't know. I'd have to ask. But you're right. We probably should add Drow, though, because, I mean, if nothing else, it would be great for all that Menace of the Underdark running. Okay, question 4. Which Update 27 item is the best? We're going to start with DDOCentral.
I pick Halcyonia, which is the healing helmet from Update 27. It's really good for clerics specifically, but I just think it's a neat item. It bundles together all the different things that could benefit clerics, like Insightful Heal, Healing Lore. It has a quality wisdom bonus, which I think is the first time I've seen that. And it adds to devotion and magical efficiency. And the artwork in the helmet is really good. You know, it has kind of a Middle Eastern look to it. You know, with the veil in front of the helmet's face. So I would pick that as the most interesting item, even though Update 27 really did have a lot of great items with great artwork, especially the helms and the shields, as they were showing off during the preview that Jerry was involved in on Wednesday. And I'm sure that'll lead to more people glamoring those items, you know, from Update 27, because there'll be a lot to glamour. There's some really good equipment artwork in this update, you know, that deserves to be appreciated by the community.
All right, here, let's, I skipped around a little bit, sorry. Who's next? Kantouch, you're next.
I picked the Memoriam, the trinket from the raid, for good luck. I think that's the first time we've seen that. 75 heal amp. I think that's the first time we've seen that. And insightful fort save and quality reflex save along with a couple slots. That's so good, it's going to make me take off the Epic Litany when I pick one up.
Epic Litany is overrated.
It's a lot of damage on that Litany.
It's overrated.
It all adds up.
Sorry, I'm not a big Litany fan.
Well, all right. Patrick, what would be your choice?
Actually, I was trying to... So there was, on the wiki, there's a longsword. On the list that you gave us, there's not a longsword. So
it's on. If it's in the wiki, then it's coming. It just maybe it got put in the wrong place.
So there's a longsword that it doesn't have a name yet, according to the wiki, but it's got improved banishing, sovereign vorpal, double strike 15%, armor piercing 20%, and it has a 17 to 20 crit range. Yeehaw! This thing is going to be a monster for DPS. 50% double strike. With Sovereign Vorpal, I mean, that's a lot of extra damage. You can cut heads off for stuff with 2,000 hit points, which isn't a lot, but that might not proc a lot, but you will get the extra damage that it's going to do when you get that, and a natural 17 to 20 crit range. I mean, come on, that's a lot of 50% and 50% double strike and armor piercing. I mean, this thing is built to do some damage. It's one-handed. It's a weapon that a lot of people can use. I think pretty much every class in the game has a way to be proficient with longswords easily, whether it's Master's Touch or through a Divine Feat, which is the best one anyways. I mean, longswords are easy to use. This one's got a lot of great stuff on it, and you can sword and board with it.
All right. Anyone want to dispute others' comments? What do you think? Is Memoriam the item for you, Kantouch?
Yeah, there's no way I don't even want much of anything else out of there, not off the top of my head, although there were 4 or 5 other items that I considered. After I thought about it, none of them are going to help out my current build, except for this one. It'll put me up to about 315 heal amp on my Barbarian.
Anyone else got something they want to say about their item?
I think the Halcyona item, it's a great item. It's pretty limited in who it's going to benefit, in that it's a healing item. And yeah, you can make the argument that everyone can use healing because everyone can use Cocoon or something like that. But most characters aren't going to dedicate a spot just for boosting Cocoon like that, particularly slots where there's so many great helmets out in the game already. I just don't see a lot of builds competing for that slot. It's great for clerics, great for divines, but I'm not sure that you're going to see a lot of people going in that direction.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
don't see a lot of people going for a long sword with Vorpal either, because Vorpal is, I mean, it gives you a little extra weapon damage, but it doesn't Vorpal anything anymore.
The Vorpal is just a kind of nice bonus. I mean, really, where I think you want to focus on this longsword: 15% double strike, 20% armor piercing, and 17 to 20 actual crit range.
The 17 to 20 crit range is great. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, that's one of the better weapons of the game. But the Vorpal and even the double strike, it's not really all that awesome. There's much better weapon effects out there.
15%
All right.
extra damage.
I'm going to call it, and I'm going to say you guys killed 4 things, and DDOCentral killed 2. Each of you killed 1. So DDOCentral is going to come ahead by a point here. And the reason for that is because DDOCentral, you raised a really excellent point that it's not just about what does it do, it's also a matter of what does it look like. And that has been a key concern, frankly. Not only do we want to make sure the weapons, have the items and attributes and that people want, but particularly since the Mirror of Glamoring, how it looks and coming up with, say, new artwork for some of these new items is really increased in importance. Because people will, and I think we've seen that with, say, the Mushroom Cap and Temple of Elemental Evil and stuff, just as one example. They absolutely will farm for an item just because of the way it looks nowadays. And Halcyona is a very unique-looking helmet that I think is going to bring a whole bunch of cosmetic looks to the game. So all 3 of these are great choices for attributes, but I think DDOCentral, you come ahead by 1 for pointing out that it's not just about what does it do. People also are picking items from their underworld list because of, hey, I can make this look cool on X character. All right, question number 5. What kind of warlock should be your first? We're going to start with Kantouch.
I went with the Great Old One and the Soul Eater tree because I felt it mixed the insta-kills between the Great Old One SLAs and what's available in the Soul Eater tree. It'll get you all the way through the game. If you're playing epic cards and heroic elites, your DCs are always going to win.
All right, Patrick.
I'm going with a Blade Forged Fae, and the reason why I go this way is, 1, it allows you to jump into higher level content pretty quick, so you can test it out on more of a, not necessarily end game, but end of heroics, kind of middle of the game, to see how it compares. Taking something new into Waterworks isn't going to give you the greatest of feel. It boosts you up really fast, so you can test a lot of the different abilities that they have and kind of jumpstart that experience. It's got good self-healing from the Blade Forge. And I think just to start, for your first Warlock, you should play kind of more of a standard Warlock. Play around with all of the different forms. You can throw a couple levels of Paladin in for a little extra survivability, maybe splash in a little bit of melee stuff. But really, you want to be able to kind of experience just the Eldritch blasting, as opposed to doing more of one of those melee. I can't remember the Enlightened Spirit melee swashbuckly type of builds, which are great builds. I'm not trying to knock those at all, but Warlock brings something new to the table in Eldritch Blast, so you really want to kind of try and experience that and get an idea what that feels like.
All right, DDOCentral, what do you think?
Okay, this is entirely a personal choice for me, but my first and only Warlock is a Great Old One Pact Warlock. That's a Drow Elf, and I picked the Tainted Scholar enhancement. And I picked the Tainted Scholar enhancement because I thought it fit in the best with the Great Old One Pact Warlock, because it also has like mind-altering type abilities like confusion and mass confusion and command, and that seems to fit in really well with the Warlock, with the Great Old One Pact Warlock. But I picked it because I wanted to create a whole backstory for this character. He's a Drow Elf that worships the Elder Eye from the original pen and paper content, and he even has a cosmetic pet that is a gelatin cube, that follows him around. That's named Jubilix, if you remember who Jubilix is from the original pen and paper content. So one of the interesting things I thought about the Warlock class is that there's more of a backstory to the 3 different enhancement lines that you can pick, because each one seems to have a story. Like the Great Old One pact is Lovecraftian, the Infernal or Fiendish pact is kind of related to tieflings. We don't have tieflings in the game, but it's kind of like a demonologist type pact, and then there's the Fey pact, which is sort of the good warlock, but each one of them has its own distinctive flavor, which is more than just functional. It kind of has a story in back of it. But I really like the Great Old One pact warlock. It's been really powerful in the game. I've just been playing it on the heroic levels, but I picked my warlock in its build because I wanted to tell a story with this particular character.
I did want to sort of add one sort of minor question to this, which will help determine the winner a little bit. And that is, when you say which kind of warlock should be your first, are you also thinking about a relatively new player or just any player who plays the game?
A little of both. I think, obviously picking a Blade Forge is going to be a little tougher for a newer player. But, Iconics they're available in the store. You can pick them up pretty quick. And I think a lot of people have Blade Forge anyways, even if they haven't bought the other ones, just from the standpoint, if you bought pre-purchase Motu, you got that free. So it's probably the most ubiquitous one. It's a little hard to get the iconic part, but other than that, self-healing is a huge thing. It's for new players and old players alike. But I think really, if it's your first warlock, you want to get an idea of what the class feels like, and you just can't do that any faster than unless you use an XP stone, which is even harder to get for a newer player. Having an iconic bumps you straight up to level 15. You've got, probably 14, at least 14, maybe 13, depending on how many paladin class levels you put in. So I think it really gives that instant experience of this is what a warlock plays like, not this is what a level 1 wannabe warlock plays like, because okay, you can do the Eldritch Blast level 1, but you don't really get a feel for what the rest of what the class can do right away. And I think just having that quick bump up, boom, here you go, off to the races, have some fun, see what this thing can do, kind of thing.
Anyone else got a comment? No? All right, well, we'll call it. I'm going to give a point to DDOCentral because he said Drow. No other reason than that. And I think that it's great because Drow are awesome, and now they have a class that makes them really desirable in some ways. Although I think you're right that Blade Forge is another great choice.
He had a really nice story pitch there.
Yeah, I really like that story pitch as well. That was really good.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
But do you remember which module is that from in the Elder Eye? Is that
Sorry,
do you remember offhand?
No clue.
Yeah, I mean,
No.
it's one of the really early modules, but I when I built the character, I decided to create a whole backstory to it. And I thought that the Warlock, one of the interesting things about it, does have a lot of kind of lore flavor that maybe some of the other classes don't.
Yeah.
That each one of them has kind of a story with it, each of one of the three major lines of Warlocks.
Yeah, I would say on paper, the Blade Forge kind of locks you into doing Fey. It's kind of your only option. But if I was doing more of just a standard blasting Warlock, I like Great Old One on paper better than I like the other ones personally.
I think all three of you raised would be excellent choices, though, for a first Warlock. Either Great Old One Soul Eater, Blade Forged Fey, or a Great Old One Tainted Scholar. All three of those would be excellent.
I thought it was interesting
choices.
that no one picked like more of a swashbuckly hybrid. I was kind of expecting that.
Yep.
At which point,
All right.
Fey is a really good choice.
Okay. Question 6. What damaging or enemy debuffing on-hit weapon proc or special effect do you feel is the most useful in DDO? Just to kind of help frame the debate here a little bit. So basically what weapon property or on-hit weapon effect, what debuff, things like, well, anything that you see as a debuff on a weapon, for example. What is the most useful in DDO? And I have some names here, Patrick. Do you know what's up with that?
That's who submitted the question.
Oh, this question was submitted by Agaxion from Kenneth. Thanks very much, Agaxion. We're going to start here with Patrick.
All right, there's a lot of good choices here, but I'm going with the energy draining, negative, the things that apply a negative level, particularly the newer ones, which give you a little bit of hit points or temporary spell points on top of that, which is great. But particularly when you get into higher level content, inflated mob hit points, those orange names in Epic that you can't just instant kill, man, if you get one of those guys down with even just a couple negative levels, I mean, they lose quite a bit of hit points every time you do that. It makes them more susceptible to other party members' abilities, maybe even your own with like Stunning Fist or a Stunning Blow. You know, it makes that crowd control guy behind you or the necromancer guy behind you more effective. It hits everyone. It helps everyone in your party, and they don't get those hit points back when they get the levels back. You throw this on something with a really high attack speed, a monk with unarmed attacks, really going to town, or 2-weapon fighter, and you can really get a lot of those to proc in a pretty quick succession.
All right, Kantouch.
Although I think the neg level effect is significant with a high attack speed, on most content in Epic Elite, they're going to regen those levels right back.
They don't regen the hit points.
It steals a few hit points, but they regen the levels and their saves are right back to normal. Hit points getting lost is a great thing. I have to give you that. But my most significant effect would be Mortal Fear. Mortal Fear has a 5% chance to take half your enemy's hit points, and they're never getting them back. They're not going to regen a level. Plus, you get an extra 8 to 64 force damage on top of that every swing. There's no other choice for me.
All right, and then finally, DDOCentral.
I would go with paralysis. In the parties that I've seen, if like the ranger has paralyzing arrows, or if somebody else has the ability to just paralyze the monsters, they go through them, paralyze everything, and the rest of the party just mows them down. So that I've seen that's the most efficient proc or debuff for taking care of a lot of enemies. In content with lots of mobs, paralysis seems to be the most useful and easily affects the most monsters.
Yeah, the fact that paralysis gives everybody around you a huge bonus to damage. I mean, you got somebody in Blitz and they got an action boost going, that's an extra 50%. If they got sense weakness, that's another 30%. Paralysis is great.
You're supposed to fight debate. Come on.
Yeah, I know. This is a pretty non-fighting debate.
I got one for you. Yeah. There we go. Mortal Fear. Isn't that tier 3 in Thunderforge?
Mm-hmm.
That's 30 flogs, man.
Yep.
Holy
Takes
cow.
a long time to get, and it is awesome. It's the best.
It might be useful.
3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, however long it took me.
5 weeks. I still don't have a single tier 3 item. And I run the raid. Well, I stopped running it when lag was going crazy, but I run the dang thing, and I still don't have a tier 3. It doesn't help that my guildies tend to, like my guild leader and some of the other guild people have been running it a lot. Give them to the new players instead of letting me roll on them. But you gotta get. That's a lot of runs.
Mm-hmm.
That's 20 runs probably minimum.
It's more than 20 runs.
Well, I mean, you can get 10 at the end. If you get one flog every run, just one flog every run on average, it's still 20 runs, and you can't take an item at the end of that raid. It's so many. And that limits it so much so that hey, it's a great weapon ability, but to say it's one of the most useful, you can't, most of the people can't even get it.
Spend the time. It's so worth every effort you can put in to get it.
I guess just in the interest of time, I'm going to call it here. I think all three of you get a point. It's too hard to decide on this one. All three of you raised really good points. I would say that Kantouch, I think you are probably correct that when it comes to the end game of DDO, the high-level end game, so to speak, I guess end game could be kind of debatable. But when we're talking about uber high-level play, basically level cap play, that Mortal Fear is, if not one of the strongest, perhaps even the strongest current property in the game. But I think when the question is the most useful in DDO, I also have to include the fact of when is it most useful for the widest range of content, for the most amount of time during your gameplay session and that. And for that, I'm going to have to say both Patrick and DDOCentral raise really good points. Paralyzing in particular because of the fact that it's a DPS boost to everyone around you. Or DDOCentral, I say that for paralyzing.
Or,
Yep.
well, actually, Kantouch mentioned that, but
Oh yeah, but still, that's paralyzing is absolutely the fact, and they can't do damage against you.
Yeah, he didn't bring
when
that
they're
up. I was
paralyzed,
waiting for that
so.
one.
But Patrick, I would say that draining in particular may be so darn powerful right now that
They nerfed a raid weapon because of this.
that I may have heard some people say we really should do something about that because oh my gosh, like I myself have to admit that if I see an item on draining, I'm just like, well, that's the one, you know.
Even we didn't. I mean, we talked about it from a weapon standpoint, but from a spellcaster standpoint, Innervation is one of the most effective spells you can use.
I mean, you raised a really good point. I can't remember if it was Kantouch or DDOCentral that negative levels they're not really about saving throws, right? It really is about DPS. It's all about losing those hit points and not getting them back. It's a large amount of hit points, particularly if you're critting or causing it to proc a lot. But it's really just a matter of constant DPS. The addition of draining to your DPS is pretty darn significant. Maybe less so on Epic Elite because a lot of these people are warded from it, or it's very hard to sort of cause it to proc. But
just from a standpoint of,
I
mean, it's going to come up later in the show about DCs and everything. You know, it may not last very long, but you hit something with a quick hypnotism to drop their will saves or something like that. Yeah, a quick neg level and then a finger or a hold, boom.
But I think so. Just answering the question of the most useful, for the widest range, I think Patrick, you're going to have to take it. Although paralyzing is a darn close second.
I think if he brings up the not only do you get a DPS boost, but they lose all of their DPS against you. I think he would have taken it.
Okay, all right, I'll give it to DDOCentral then. Thanks, Patrick, for.
I wanted to pick paralyzing. I let him take it anyway. So.
All right, final question here. What monster do we want to see added to DDO? And if it has some new mechanics, let's talk a little bit about what they might be. Oh, and this question comes from Fenwick from Kyber. Thanks, Fenwick. We're going to start with DDOCentral.
I would pick the Aboleth, which I think would fit in really well to a lot of the things that are probably being planned in the near future. I mean, the trends right now are for end game content, for content related to the gatekeepers, the extra planar content, and also with the recent updates that we've had, are about like Zoriat and maybe the Far Realms. So the Aboleth, if people that aren't familiar with the Aboleth is kind of like a giant eel, a cross between a giant eel and a mind flayer. They're from the same plane of madness that the mind flayers are from, apparently, and in some lores for DDO. So I think that if we could add content like that, they would make a good end game enemy for very high level play, and that also we could add quests that have underwater content, like the Red Fens capstone quest. It'd be interesting to see another underwater themed quest, and including the Aboleths would be able to fit well into something like that.
All right, Kantouch.
I have to give a shout out to the underwater. I'd love to see an underwater raid. I've been saying that since probably my second week playing DDO. But anyway, I picked the Githyanki. They're psychic pirates that were former slaves of mind flayers. I picked them because they despise every other race, and they loot and pillage all their victims, but leave just enough food and resources for them to rebuild so they can come back and do it again.
Be a good ubiquitous race you could throw in a lot of places.
And Patrick.
I'm going with what I think of as kind of the cult classic iconic monster, the Umber Hulk. It's kind of a fun monster that, for some reason, it always seems to come up in conversations about cool DDO monsters, and it has this ability of confusion. And what I'm thinking here is, this is not like, I've heard people say that it should take control of your character, you lose control of your character. It's boring. I don't like that when you're playing a game, because then you don't get to do anything. I don't like the freezing thing, What I want is inverting your controllers. So up becomes down, down becomes up, right becomes left, and left becomes right. You can still do stuff, but it's going to totally mess with your head as you're trying to move around and, kite stuff, and suddenly you're going the completely wrong direction. You're running off of cliffs and or underground chasms, and it's mostly an underground monster. But, it could just be a really fun aspect of gameplay. As far as, we go underground a lot, and I think a lot of people were a little disappointed that we went to the Underdark and we didn't have any Umber Hulks. I know I heard that a lot. Like I said, it's a funny little monster in that people really like Umber Hulks, and when they think of D&D, particularly video game D&D, Umber Hulk seems to always come up in the conversation. I think it'd be a really popular choice, a lot of fun with the mechanics, and you can put it in a lot of places.
Anyone think someone else's choice is a bad one?
No, they're all good, and I've suggested every one of them on the forums.
I think you think about Aboleth, though, is it's a water monster. Can it actually even go on land?
No, I don't think so. That's what I mean. It would fit in well.
You can't fight in water.
Like
in DDO.
Kantouch mentioned, it would fit in really well to an underwater raid, which is something that hopefully we can see, because the mechanic is already there in the game.
I gotta say though, underwater combat is still probably for me the most disappointing addition to the game, from the standpoint that, here comes underwater combat, we're really gonna push it, and then it was so clunky, it was annoying to move in, and it's a small little area, thank goodness, but it was just so disappointing from the standpoint of fighting underwater. It did not give me the
I agree, it was
feel
disappointing. The whole push I'm hoping for will improve that underwater combat and make it a little easier to float.
I was trying to think of a monster to pick for this, and one of the things I really was looking for was something new that they would offer. I thought about a basilisk, but we've already got you can get turned to stone in a lot of different ways. Someone in the chat, Mr. Walker in the chat, mentioned displacer beasts, which we've got displaced mobs, which is kind of why I thought about it. But we've got displaced mobs, and other than that, it's just kind of a cat with tentacles. Githyanki, they've got a little bit of psionic stuff going on, but they're more or less a humanoid that's really ticked off. Umber Hulk, get confused, and I can imagine just in a party, and suddenly someone's freaking out because their controllers have completely inverted, and they can move around, but they're going completely the wrong direction, and chaos ensues. It's just a good times for all.
This is a good time to bring this up. Jerry, have they ever talked about adding goblins to the game? Because that is the one core monster that has not seen the light of day in DDO yet.
We got kobolds.
Well, I can tell you the answer to that is yes, if for no other reason than I have talked to people about adding goblins to the game. So
they're the only main humanoid enemy, among the the different evil demi-humans that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
These are all good choices, though.
And I would also add Mistwalker67 from chat adds hooked horrors, which would also be cool. So.
I gotta remember what those are.
Well, they're horrors and they have hooks. So,
hence the name.
This is another kind of, I don't think I can pick a winner here. The only one I would say, DDOCentral, as awesome as the Aboleth is, it does sort of require an underwater setting. Although we do have some quests that you do a lot of swimming in, so maybe there's a way we could sort of add them. So now I guess I just talked myself out of not giving you a point. All right, so you all get a point because that was some great choices there, and
I think if you did an encounter where the Aboleth was in the water and you had to range it, or there was a small window where you could attack it, but then it was sending a bunch of mind-controlled stuff at you, you could get some interesting things going on there from a content or a fight standpoint. But we kind of have a lot of those too. So.
Interesting little bit of trivia history on the Githyanki, though. They first showed up in the cover of the Fiend Folio, or at least they were. I don't know if they didn't first show up, but they're on the cover of the Fiend Folio, the first edition one. And also, they've been around since basically 1990 or 1977 in AD&D. They were part of the first edition. But interestingly, guess where Githyanki, the name, comes from?
It's from George R.R. Martin's novel, I think.
That is correct.
Dying
from
of
1970. Light. Yep, there you go. All right. I think I'm going to give you a point just for that one then. Because it actually the strange crossover from way back in the day with George R.R. Martin and D&D, huh? So.
Yeah, I mean, all the early Dungeons & Dragons stuff is either taken from earlier games, strategy games, or from novels, especially Lord of the Rings, but also more obscure ones like that.
Yeah.
Most people haven't heard of that novel, even people that like him.
Indeed. All right, so I'm going to, basically, when I tally up the points, basically everyone's tied 5 points. So I'm going to give all three of you a Turbine point code, and we'll take care of that after the end of the show here.
Okay, thank you, Jerry.
Yep.
Appreciate that.
And thanks for the debates here. It looks like I'm going to have the reins of the show wrested from me in a violent coup from Patrick. After
about violent, you did a great job. Hey, let's get
Great job,
applause for Jerry. Moderating is kind of a pain, especially if you got. That's why I stopped doing the winner thing. I don't know. It took all the fun out of it for me. It's like, who's the winner here? I don't know. I would say, before we move on though, like Githyanki could be a fun venture into the astral plane. It'd be a fun place to go explore. You can fly everywhere. Everything's flying.
We do have a planes caller in the 12 that can send us more places than it allows us to go.
It's true. First thing, like people have enjoyed flying and have always complained that I can't. You don't let us fly anywhere. The whole thing about flying. Although it'd be a little clunky.
Let me just sort of drop a little bit of a knowledge bomb and say that I have seen concept art for at least one of these. So.
There you go.
All right. Time to turn the reins back over to Patrick. Thanks,
Jerry. Yeah. Glad you could join us. We'll get into game news. And the first thing, downtime. A fairly lengthy downtime. Servers will be brought down Monday, July 27th. That's tomorrow from 3 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you. That is my day off.
Sorry, Patrick.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But
it's going
to be data center maintenance and launching update 27, Trials of the Archons. Additionally, DDO.com will be unavailable between 3 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time. And I think pretty much all of you guys' games are going down, aren't they?
Right. That's why with this big window, this is actually one of our more significant sort of hardware efforts we were going to do all year, frankly. They're transferring over all of Turbine's billing services and shared billing services to our new data center, and so that's a huge project for our network operations people and all that sort of thing. So that's the reason for that big downtime. But then on top of that, once that work is done, then we're going to release update 27. And so there's our typical 2 to 4 hour window for update 27 as well. And so that's why it's going to 4 p.m. for DDO. But for every other Turbine game, it's 3 a.m. to noon. And it's a lot of work. They've got a lot. I mean, frankly, that's what they're doing a lot of work today that they can while the games are still up, and then we're going to bring the games down and do a lot of the kind of real work to bring over all those billing services to the new data center. I would say that the game servers for DDO are not being brought over to the new data center yet as part of this maintenance. That's going to happen a little bit later, but this facilitates that happening, and you can probably expect a similar long downtime window when we do actually bring the game servers over to that new data center. Anyone who's worked in IT, I'm sure you can imagine moving a data center from one part of the country to another and making it all work in that in a 9-hour window, despite it being a pretty long downtime, is actually, they're going to be working pretty hard on Monday morning. So
and that's really early to start working.
Right. Right.
May the coffee flow freely and the donuts be ever bountiful for your workers.
The only thing I don't know is if DDO.com may not be down entirely from 3 a.m. to noon. It's going to be down until basically it's not. It's going to be a little kind of up in the air, frankly, as to when it's down. It may be up early, frankly.
So pro tip, pay attention to DDO on Twitter and Facebook to get updates, since the main website will be down.
Yeah, same with the launcher too. When the main website's down, the launcher is also pretty much can't be updated. So follow us on social media, please, if you were interested in this. So,
All right, some other fun. The Cupcake Musketeers broke the forums. In a nutshell, basically the forum thread, which has been around almost since the beginning.
it has been around since the beginning, but this thread in particular started in 2007 after one of the original community managers way back in the day accidentally got rid of the first thread while doing some forum maintenance. That was a big deal at the time.
I mean, it's a huge thread. It's more than 5,200 pages. So I don't think you figured out exactly what's going to happen to it. But it will probably be back in some sort of incarnation.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, my goal was to... So basically, this thread was similar to, I guess, what I call an IRC thread that you see in a lot of game websites, where it's just people who want to can just... It's kind of a constant chat on the forums in the off-topic section. And it's been going on since 2007, and I sort of just let it go, because after all this time, you know, it just... I didn't really think about it, frankly. It's probably my fault. Because I should not have let it get to 5,200 plus pages. Because apparently when a forum thread gets that big, it causes some real problems when people try to load up the thread. And not just for that thread in particular, but for DDO.com. And so this past week, I was some of these same network operations people were like, Jerry, there's this thread that every time someone clicks on it, it's causing a memory allocation issue on our... the web servers. So I was like, well, I guess I got to do something about that. My hope was that if I just closed the thread, started a new one, we would be able to keep the old thread around. But unfortunately, I brought it back briefly on, I guess it was Thursday of this week, and caused some more forum issues. So I think what I'm going to have to do is keep it hidden for a while until I can carve out the time to actually split up the thread into several threads. I'm going to have to create a few threads and then take hundreds of posts out of it and bring the size of the main thread down to the point that I can actually make it available to the public again. So it's going to unfortunately be gone for a little while because that's going to be more work than you'd think. And
I'm sure that people appreciate you taking the time so that we can preserve this piece of DDO history.
Yep. It's literally going to take hours out of a work day, so
Yeah,
I
I
need to
bet.
carve out the time to do that. So unfortunately.
There's also a debate going on a little bit about the monster saves, specifically for Update 27. Just some stuff that I think it was mostly of our Gwil that was kind of posting in. So they're taking out the +4 moral bonus to saving throws from being on Shavrath. So they're coming from the point of view that Shavrath has +10 to monster saves compared to Temple of Elemental Evil. Is kind of high, and pulling back player characters' saves by 4 as part of the change also seemed acceptable, so they're doing that. They are leaving the +4 to enchantment and fear saving throws, which is they feel is still meaningful. And they're leaving spell resistance largely intact. They don't feel that those values are too high, but they are extremely widespread in Shavrath, so non-damaging harmful spells are still going to have some issues with the content in general, which I think is fine. It's part of the content. It's not like there aren't other areas that's true. In short, they feel that Shavrath is going to retain some of the difficulty lore and feel without going too far. Everyone's going to have their opinion on what that means, but that's kind of where they're at. They're also going to do some, additional tweaky kind of stuff. They're expecting that weak saves from many of the monsters will drop lower, but the strongest saves for particular monster types are likely to stay close to where they are. And he posted 2 examples, which had the strong saves somewhere in the 80s range, like the low 80s, and some weak saves as low as just below 30, which is a pretty big variance. And then kind of just in general, it was mentioned that almost every monster has at least 1 weak saving throw and at least 1 strong saving throw. There's a few scattered monster types that get 3 fairly strong saves that are pretty good, but not as strong as the, quote, strong saves. Like players, favored souls and monks don't have a truly weak save, but they only rarely make monsters like that. Full bosses are, of course, often unique and special and powerful snowflakes. Orange name mini bosses usually get more like normal bosses, but the designers of particular quests sometimes customize them in particular ways. There you go.
Yep. And the really the critical take home is that if you're saying, man, how's come this guy always saves against my X? It's probably because that monster has a strong saving throw, and it is a design tactic, is a actual gameplay tactic to figure out, well, if they're strong against this, then they're probably weak against something else, and what can I use against that weak save? If your sort of ability to get through a quest is strongly determined by sort of saving throw based attacks and stuff.
General rule of thumb is if it's going to be kind of more melee, it's probably got a good fortitude save. If it's kind of got maybe it's a bow user or it's kind of a roguish type, it's going to have a good reflex save. And if it's a caster type, it's probably going to have a good will save. And you can kind of, if you know what the player classes bonuses are, if you run into some like a hobgoblin cleric, it's going to have the same saving throws as a cleric. It's going to have for the most part. So you can kind of go on that. Or DDOCentral and Kantouch, do you guys have any thoughts on monster saves and difficulty, any of that?
Not really. I mean, the monster champions the system has made monsters have better saves than they did in the past. I've noticed that, that they're a lot harder to take down in some instances. But it's not something that I've thought a lot about. I just try to mow down the monsters, and if it's a raid boss, then I look up what kind of saves it has, or kind of the things that it's immune to, or the damage that it's vulnerable to. But it's not something that I've really thought deeply about in the game.
I don't like that they're taking away a couple of our saves, but I do have a question about that. If I cast my own GH, is it going to give me my 4 saves back?
Should.
Yeah, it should.
Okay.
Yeah, this is really just about the Shavarath environmental effect, which, back in really level 20 content, the old heroic Shavarath content, saving throws and those mobs in there were pretty high, and that was by design, because the Shavarath environmental effect really provides a number of, bonuses to everyone's saving throws, yours and theirs and everything. And when we translated it up into Epic, we had to make some tweaks, ultimately, to make it a little more gameplay friendly. So that's really what this is about.
My kind of view on this, like, some people were complaining that some monsters had saves that were higher than what was, quote, achievable by conventional means. And to me, that says, one, you might have to use debuffs, and I think that's okay. And two, hey, devs might be planning for future stuff. There might be other stuff coming out that's going to boost your saves. It's, we get power creep, so do the monsters. It kind of needs to balance out a little bit.
There's a very good point, Varg. I'm kidding. Sorry, Varg.
The other thing is DC casting is probably one of the most powerful things that you can do as a player in the game. And I think, conversely, it's probably the hardest to balance, from the standpoint that there's kind of two generally forms of DC casting. Controlling, which makes the monsters not do anything and generally take extra damage. And two, insta-killing, which just gets rid of the monster, which, if you can do that too much, then where's the challenge? I mean, we had that challenge when Epics first came out and everyone was, was mass holding and using picks everywhere. I mean, that was the general tactic, and created some problems. So, also, there's spells that don't have saves. I'm just gonna point that out. They exist. You can use them. I also think, I was kind of thinking about some of this, and I kind of had the quick thought that, maybe a possible solution, if you're listening, devs, and Jerry can take this to the team, is reducing the saves a little bit, and then give Epic Elite, maybe Epic Hard monsters additional saving throws. So, if they get a crowd control piece on it, maybe you can do some sort of fancy coding and allow monsters to roll saving throws more often, or every time a monster rolls, it rolls twice. And if it saves either time, then it saves. So there might be some other ways of balancing that, but that was kind of a quick thought that I had that I'd throw out there. But it's a challenge. I mean, it's a challenge, and I Kantouch brought this up last week, but my one trick pony thoughts are fairly well known, I think. If the only thing that you can do is hold something or finger something, you're going to need other options. That's just the way the game works. Let's see. There was a quick note. Question was asked and answered that there will be mythic versions of the raid loot from the new pack, which will generally be more easily available on Epic Elite. And you just deleted a release note, and I don't know which one it was.
I deleted a comment on a release note that has changed.
Ah, okay.
Yep.
Speaking of release notes, there were some new release notes for Lamania. And let's see, maybe we should...
I said in the forums late this past week that the Guild Airship Tavern regeneration, there's a change coming in Update 27, a fix really to allow players to swap and select spells and rejuvenate their clickies with the Guild Airship Tavern regeneration property. Originally, late last week, it was thought that we might have to pull that from Update 27, but actually I saw late on Friday afternoon that we were able to get it back into the build. So that's actually going to be in 27 again.
It's very convenient.
Yeah, I'm not going to complain about that. Let's see, just to kind of... So there's that. I'm just going to kind of paraphrase some of these. See, there was... Sorry, Jerry put in the full release notes, and I was looking at those, see if there's anything new. But some things... Enlightened Spirit Warlocks will no longer immediately die while trying to resurrect. Which...
That's a good thing.
I like to put these notes in here just because they're amusing. Like if that I get, like, if that happened to you, I'd be kind of ticked off and what the heck's going on. But when you're just reading the release note for that, it's kind of funny. You gotta say.
This actually kind of makes me sad because one of my guildies plays one of those, and it was quite amusing for me to listen to them complain about, it did it again, in guild chat every hour.
I don't know. I think one of the most fun ones I ever just kind of read, and I didn't have any previous knowledge of it, was the one when Epic Destinies were introduced, that Judgment was affecting Pale Masters. I thought that was pretty funny. And then it happened to me. I was like,
my favorite is probably Cyclonic Blast knocking over halflings.
A good one, too. Let's see. Hirelings will now display a banner when standing ground and should never wander more than a few meters from the banner. I thought that was kind of a neat little thing, like they're going to plant a flag or something.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I will say that, at least with Update 27 here, the initial implementation really doesn't have necessarily as much use as perhaps it will in the future. This actually stems from one of our DDO engineers created this flag to help him diagnose hireling stand your ground issues. And the guy at one point just kind of went to some of the folks on the team and said, hey, this actually is kind of cool. Do you think people would want to have this? I was like, yeah, sure. Now you're going to basically have a flag. When you hit stand your ground in the hireling, you're going to have a flag that shows up right immediately behind them. And that's where they're going to stand their ground. So if you have any question about where they should be, that's where they should be. And, they will sometimes go attack or defend within a radius of that flag. But it'll help you guys, help us debug it as well. So right now, this initial implementation is just kind of a, hey, why not? And a way to sort of help diagnose hireling AI issues, both for you guys and for us. But I think in the future it has the potential to be far more useful, perhaps show up on maps or show up on other people's screens. Because right now it only displays for you, not for the rest of the party.
There's also, one of the notes is that there's an option to turn it off if you want in the UI settings. So
the hireling UI settings.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's see, there's the new limited duration event that awards XP for every character besides yourself in either a dungeon or raid or both, which can be turned on in a future date, which will be fun. I think that more XP is always, I'm always a fan. So, even though I kind of notched it a little bit earlier. Let's see, players can now craft directly from their shared bank crafting storage when using a barter UI. Yeehaw. Do you know if the Stone of Change is not going to use that?
No, the Stone of Change isn't set to use it. The only way it works is from what's called, I think you guys know the term, right? Barter UI. You know what that is, right?
Yeah, it's the one where it shows you the different options. You click it, and then it automatically populates the ingredients if you have them.
Exactly right. So the older Stone of Change doesn't have the underlying tech necessary to make it work. So that's why this is only going to work for Barter UIs, which is a lot throughout the game, frankly. Things, including, say, Caneth crafting and most event UIs.
Yeah, they started using it for Maybar at one point, and then slowly converted other things to that, including Shroud.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it takes a little bit of the fun of trying to figure out how to craft that the Shroud had originally, but I mean that ship, we figured that out in like a month at most. So, but anyways, let's see. We talked a lot about the suspending bravery streak. Just some comments that Sev put in that I wanted to put out there on the forums. Right now, a player feels compelled to run new content on Elite to get the first-time bonus. Because of that, there are players who expect to be able to complete Elite content with a low failure rate for the first time, which means that missions that are hard on Elite can be frustrating to players trying to maximize their XP. They'd rather have a player option to be able to approach new content on normal or hard first and work their way up to Elite. Means that a player needs to be able to turn off any kind of first-time bonuses for new content, or they'll ruin their chance of that first-time bonus XP. The intent is that you would be able to turn off your bravery streak, go and complete a quest on normal, then activate it and complete it on Elite, and then receive that bravery streak as well, which is kind of cool, because I thought it was, from the first read, it was just going to be you turn it off and you run the quest, and you can't get that bonus for the quest at another time, but I kind of like that way that's going to work. And of course the flawless victory bonus as well. Anything anyone wants to add about release notes? Or
the only thing I'd say about the flawless victory bonus is you'll often heard it described in game as the quote death penalty, and that's what they're talking about there.
Yeah, my thought on that is if you're describing that as a death penalty, then you weren't here before when we really had death penalties.
Yeah, right.
But that's okay. There is a new monster manual. The following monsters will be in that: the Gnoll, Hellcat, Ice Flenser, Iron Golem, Lich, Ogre, Scarrow, Succubus, Warforged Titan, and Water Elemental. I thought Water Elemental was already in there. I guess not. It's a pretty good list, actually. Gnolls are all over the place. Liches are pretty frequent. Ogres are really all over the place. Water elementals are as well. And then Warforged Titans are a nice kind of low number one to be farming for. I'm trying to remember what a Scarrow is.
Oh, that's the Drow. The Drow,
Sands.
Volcor, yeah, the Demon Sands.
The Scorpions in the Sands, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's going to be like a subset of Drow?
They're
the scorpion things.
Yeah, they're the scorpion things that have
okay.
They're like a Drider, but they're a cross between a Drow and a Scorpion instead of a Drow and a Spider.
Oh,
so
okay.
You remember those things?
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
The ones with the mutton chops.
The not Driders. Got it.
Yep.
Raid loot. There will be 6 to 7 upgrade tomes in the new raid on Epic Elite at about the same rarity as Epic Elite Temple of Elemental Evil. And the raid did get tougher. That was mentioned in the video. We'll talk about it in a minute. Bonus days, you can get 15% extra guild renown, I think, through today.
Yep.
And the sales, through July 30th, you can get 20% off of stat tomes, skill tomes, UMD tomes, tomes of learning, tomes of fate, and the Harper Agent Enhancement Tree. You can get a free Lesser Slayer count boost, one of those with the code E3BA6, which is, I think, the first time in a while that the code has been something that I couldn't figure out where they originated the code from.
Yeah,
that was kind of a random code name. Usually if you kind of look at the letters, you can kind of figure out how that they kind of arrived by it, and the number is usually like the date that it goes active. But this one was really weird.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one either. Yeah.
The summer sales through July 31st, you can get 35% off of Astral Shards, 75% off of Epic Destinies. I'm going to say that again, 75% off of Epic Destinies. If you do not have them, buy them now.
I was going to say the exact same thing. And I am biased, but seriously, folks, if you don't have Epic Destinies, this is as cheap as it's probably ever going to get. So
I don't think I've ever seen a sale that was more than 75% off other than the freebies. And if you're playing in Epic content without Epic Destinies, you're missing out on so much Epic Destinies is where epic leveling is really at. So if you don't have those, maybe you're a new player and you're just starting out and you're only at level 7, get it now. If you think you might even possibly ever make it that far, get them now. I think it's only like 200 points at this point, so really good deal. You can also get 50% off of a +3 Lesser Heart of Wood, which I'm assuming is a lot cheaper than a +1 Heart of Wood. At that price, you can get 50% off of Airship Hull Paints, 75% off of Sovereign Guild Renown Elixirs, and 35% off of Monster Manual Volume 4.
Yep.
And
this is the final week for summer sales, so this does run through the 31st.
It's like an extra day.
Yeah.
I remember Volume 6 is coming out this time?
Correct.
So Volume 4 was 2 volumes ago.
I think so, yeah.
Let's see. The DDO 151st DDO Chronicle, the 10-week challenge for Makar is done. We'll talk about that in a minute. Kitty Ocean created a new DDO comic. I need to go check that out. Let's see. The Halfling Summer Games are still going. They did Caught in the Web and Tower of Despair this last Friday. We got a shout-out for our Summer Scavenger Hunt. Let's see, the guild. The first ones are a new Sarlona-based guild looking for people who game from the United Kingdom or Western Europe, which is kind of fun. The comment for the week: how much rust would a rust monster rust if left unimpeded? That is
if a
not
rust
a correct...
monster could rust?
Yeah, that's not a correct translation of the quote there.
A rust monster would rust all the rust if a rust monster could rust. Yeah.
I don't think rust monsters, they don't, they actually eat rust? Is that what it is?
They eat the steel, and then it turns into rust?
Yeah. That's what I thought, right? They turn it into rust, and then they consume the rust.
Yeah, that's how they break it down. So they turn it into rust, and then they munch it.
Yeah. I don't think a rust monster can rust, so that's my answer.
Oh.
Kind of a fun one, though. Little tongue twister. Let's see. DDOCast delves into being raid ready. That was our last show. Thanks for the shout out. The Damsels of DDO got the band back together in Vaughn 4. They had an episode this week, but I don't think the podcast has been published yet. DDO Gamer had a spoiler-free look at Update 27. Cocktail Hour had their 88th episode. And I think they also had another episode that hasn't come out on the podcast yet this week. So you can look for that in the coming days. The Order of Syncletica looked at a completed Zen Archer build. Enrique looked at the Sentinels of Stormreach adventure pack. And Lessa created a new video trail for the Shortcuts Cobalt Island Challenge. And City battled oozes and other amorphous invertebrates.
I just want to mention that Lessa's put quite a bit of work into this challenge video, and I believe she has a series of challenge sort of tutorials in the works. So well worth a read if you want to learn more about how to run challenges optimally.
Yeah, it was a good one. And also in the Chronicle, if you wanted to see Vin Diesel's birthday cake, which was the 3.5 core books, a little bigger than that, but you can check that cake for the Chronicle as well. Update 27 had a preview video, Update 27 had a preview video on DDO's YouTube page. There was a couple of things mentioned there that I wanted to point out. The new pack will be free to VIPs. The price quoted in the video was 495 points, which is pretty low for a pack, which is kind of nice. I think they're pretty short quests anyways. It will be Gatekeeper favor, which is kind of interesting, which will still not have a reward this update, but will soon. And they did mention that the story will be told over several updates, which will be kind of fun. There were some hints about possibly some new Fate tomes coming. Those are the Tomes of Fate. They'll give you extra Fate points for your twists for Epic Destinies. There was the new Monster Manual was mentioned, which will be free to VIP, and will have, quote, significant Mysterious Remnant rewards.
You know how it takes 10,000 Mysterious Remnants to get a top-tier item? Guess how many Mysterious Remnants you can get from the Monster Manual?
A couple of times. Is it a couple of times, or is it just total?
No, I believe it's just once, right? I believe it's because you get 1,000. I think
1,000
per
the
top tier of the mobs. But it ends up being a 10,000 Mysterious Remnants possible from this Monster Manual. You know, so if you're one of those folks who is just like, man, I really want to get that thing, but it costs 10,000. This is the way to do it. So.
I'd still like to see better balance. Amaranth will also be accessible through the Hall of Heroes, which was mentioned in there as well. So, and there are going to be new Mysterious Remnants rewards, which were going to be there, which were basically tome +1 and 2 tomes for melee, ranged, and spell power, and MRR and PRR, which is was listed on the wiki. So, let's see.
Oh, and I believe those new Fate tomes are going to be +3.
Okay, well, yeah, we have +2 in the game right now.
Yep. So +3. Yep.
Let's see, some blogs. DDOCentral reached 5,000 followers on Twitter. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Yay.
I'll probably start reaching about 1,000 followers every month. So hopefully by the end of the year, I'll have 10,000 followers.
Which is a
So
big
something
number.
important to remember when you're tweeting is that if you have 10,000 followers, you probably reach only about 500 people with each tweet. So it's important to have a large Twitter following. If you're tweeting to a few hundred people, like 5 people are seeing that. So
Good to know.
it is important to grow your Twitter following to reach an audience.
Frankly, it's even worse on Facebook.
Yeah, it's even worse on Facebook. If you have 1,000 followers, you'll reach like 30 or 40 people.
Yeah.
Let's see. Players News had their 42nd episode this week. DDO Gamer took a closer look at charisma skills, literally the actual graphics. See, Lessa had another challenge tutorial, which was moving targets this time around. That's the Rushmore one that the bosses can move around. It was a great video. She's doing a really, really good job with those. So if you don't really know how to run Kantouch challenges, I highly recommend you check those out. See, and Makar's 10-week challenge ended, as mentioned. I managed 4th, yay! Which is a little higher. I think mostly on the fact that very few people actually did the last one, which let me jump like 5 people. But congrats to Razor of Omnipresence, which I think is on Galanda. I didn't write that part down. But
interesting tutorial or trivia fact. Although I still have to hear back from a couple people, so it could theoretically change. But as it currently stands, of the top 10 winners, the big prize winners, the majority are from Kenneth. Kenneth guy has more winners in Makar DDO's 10-week challenge than any other server.
Which is probably where Omnipresence is from.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some people doing it.
I play on Kenneth, and I think they are from Galanda. I know I've seen them on Kenneth, like on alts or something like that, but their main guild's on Galanda.
Well, it was a fun event. Thanks, Makar, for hosting it. I enjoyed it. I definitely spent more time than I should have involved in that, but I had fun.
I just want to say, too, that I really do want to thank Makar DDO for doing this. I think this may be one of the most successful player-run events ever. I mean, there are others that are also very successful, but this one's right up there with that group. So it was a huge event this year, a big thing.
Mistwalker says Omnipresence is on Galanda. But yeah, it was a great event. I think it was very well participated in. People seem to have a lot of fun, and it definitely, even for me, kind of thought about some of those quests a little differently. I think Chai had a good point that it was a little bit more about metagaming and figuring it out, because usually where I had problems was my build was not efficient for what I needed, and I was too lazy to make a new one. So I tried to strong arm it and spent more time than I would have when rerolling it. And in other news, DDOCast will be back this week. We had last week off. We might be without Lesson for a week or two because of Gen Con, but we'll still be doing DDOCast. The Summer Scavenger Hunt Extravaganza ends tomorrow because Update 27 becomes live. So if you haven't yet, send in your submissions. You have a pretty good chance of winning stuff. There's a moderate amount of people that have submitted. If you get 30 points, you can win pretty much every prize there is to win. So, and that's not too hard to do. So you still have a little time, but make sure you get those submissions in before the servers come back up. No, I will not be nitpicky about the time on that, but if you particularly are submitting the new quests from Lomania stuff for points, you better get that in before the servers come up. See, Other stuff going on. Gen Con is this weekend, July 30th through August 2nd. There will be a gathering for buffs at the Severin Bar. Let's see. They didn't have a very clear time listed, but I'm assuming it's be about 9 o'clock. They said that the intent is to be there till they kick us out, so roll by after the 11 o'clock event. They'll just have a head start.
If it's anything like last Gen Cons, basically the exhibit hall closes at around 6. People go and get dinner. Some people get together as a group, but it's a little too hard to coordinate everyone having dinner together. So typically those who can will join for dinner and those who can't won't. And then everyone will show up over the next hour, hour and a half at the Severin Bar and go until they get kicked out. Yeah. And then sometimes it even continues after that. But, that'll be done on the at the time. So
PAX Prime will be August 20th through 31st. I just posted in the forums. There will be DDOCast will be hosting a get-together for buffs. It'll be at the Rock Bottom Brewery, which is on 5th Avenue, just around the corner. It's pretty close to the convention center. On Friday, August 28th at 9 o'clock, and we'll hang around until we have a party wipe. I think last year we were there for about 2.5 hours. Probably had about 10 people or so that came. It was a lot of fun. So we will be doing that again. If you are either in Seattle or if you are at PAX, feel free to come and join us.
Let me just answer one quick question from chat, if that's okay. Mistwalker67 did ask if he may ask a quick question. A long time ago in a producer's letter, I believe, there was a mention of considering player housing. Is there any more thoughts on that? I know it's a bit of a love it or hate it thing, but I was curious. The answer is we're not saying no on player housing. It may well come in the future, but at this point, we've sort of put it on the back burner for other priorities. So I would never say never, but I think it's frankly on the back burner for the foreseeable future.
Lightning post from Livmo regarding our last show. He was kind of talking about the biggest thing he was referring to was we were talking about getting raid ready, and I think Voodoo mentioned have some hit points, or you can be squished a lot. He kind of mentioned that let's be supportive of newer players that maybe don't have a large hit point range, and he said, please set aside the elitist mindset and take notice when someone mentions that they are new, and help the newer players get those extra hit points and that kind of stuff. I thought that was a good point.
Are you trying to say that res cakes don't count as hit points?
Not in a raid. You can't use them in a raid. And let's see. I did not put in a story question, but we had questions for the debate. So with that, we're going to close out the show. DDOCentral, why don't you tell us a little bit more about DDOCentral real quick? Give us a nice, good plug.
You can go to DDOCentral.com, and I aggregate all the blog posts for the entire DDO blog sphere, and it's updated every day. You'll get 3 new posts, and the site also has links to everything that I could find on the internet for Dungeons & Dragons Online, like Facebook pages for DDO, Twitter pages, all the websites, YouTube channels. There's even like a Pinterest page. DDO has an official Pinterest page, and you can check all this out. I try to aggregate everything that I can, and I try to keep it as updated as I can. So check it out, and it's a good resource for getting started in the game too, because I have a section called New Player Resources where you can just start doing your research about how to play DDO, and it has links to the DDO wiki and like the DDO Reddit page, which is a good discussion group for DDO outside the main forums.
If someone has something new that they're starting and they want to let you know about it, how should they do that?
They can just email me at ddocentral@gmail.com, and you can just explain what you want posted, and I'll put it up on the blog if it's a new player resource.
Awesome. Kantouch?
I don't really have anything to plug, so thanks for having me along, and shout out to my guild Blood Rage on Kenneth.
No problem. And Jerry?
Just a quick reminder that we do have an Update 27 preview video, maybe for tomorrow's long downtime or whatever, if you want to take a look at that and kind of know what to expect, you can find that on YouTube. It's youtube.com/Dungeons and Dragons, one long word, no ampersand. And if you would, please consider following us on social media. It's facebook.com/DDO Unlimited, twitter.com/DDO Unlimited. And like you said, we also have a Pinterest page and twitch.tv/DDO stream. We have at least one new show that is going to be starting real soon, and some other cool stuff happening there as well. So we'd love to see you join us. Otherwise, please check out DDO.com and the DDO forums. We'd love to have you join us for a conversation there. Thanks, everyone, for playing DDO, and hope you enjoy Update 27.
Yeah, and if you're looking for the Update 27 video too, I did like it, so it is on the DDOCast YouTube feed as well. So thanks for listening to the show. Thanks for the folks in the chat. It's always fun to have a few people in the chat asking questions and stuff like that. And thanks to the guests here. Really great to have this fine group of folks. And I hope the debating stuff was helpful for you and you guys found it to be enjoyable. It's always kind of fun to put some of that stuff together and really think about that. And thanks also to the other cast contributors. There's a great group of folks that are really helping put the show together. It's not just me. And I really appreciate the help with that. And thanks to Turbine and Wizards for the great game. And thanks to Cyberus for hosting the podcast. You can hit us up at DDOCast.com for our show notes, our calendar, previous shows, and other fun stuff. If you'd like to be a part of the show, or you just want to say hi, ask a question, give us a debate topic, you can reply to tweets, you can email DDOcast@gmail.com, any of that fun stuff. Anywhere you can leave a comment, that works as well. You can find us on social media at DDOcast and on Facebook. You can follow us on for the latest cast updates there. The closing tip for the week comes from Burning Hate. Says, make some plat selling dwarven ingots for some goodies later, which is a good tip.
I just say 100 or a million plat on one of my characters this week. So woohoo.
That's a good way to do it. So until next time, when all your attack rolls be crits, all your trust level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs at Gen Con. And have fun at Gen Con.